Go out as much as I'd like to.
Yeah?
Yeah, I go out very often. I don't know where that comes from that I don't go out.
When Hollywood legend Evelyn Hartman died at 94, her granddaughter didn't get a phone call. She didn't get a letter. She found out on Twitter. While the world mourned the woman who once dominated box offices and sold over 60 million records, 28-year-old Lily Hartman was staring at her phone in disbelief. Strangers were posting tributes. News anchors were crying on live television. But no one from the family had told her. For 16 years, Lily had not seen her grandmother. And like millions of fans, she learned about her death through a headline. The public believed Evelyn Hartman was the golden girl of American entertainment. A singer, an actress, a philanthropist. But behind the ivy-covered walls of her California estate was a story far more complicated. There were lawsuits, a missing fortune, a manager who controlled access, and a family that slowly disappeared. From her life, or now, years later, Lily is breaking her silence about the woman America adored, but never truly knew, because Evelyn Hartman didn't just have a career, she had secrets. And some of them followed her to the grave. Evelyn Hartman wasn't born into glamour. She entered the world as Evelyn Marie Harper in 1928 in a small industrial town in Pennsylvania. Her father worked in a steel mill, her mother cleaned houses. Money was always short. By age 8, Evelyn had already learned that dreams cost more than her family could afford. Her childhood changed forever during the winter of 1937. Her father lost his job during a factory shutdown. Arguments filled the house. One night, he packed a suitcase and never came back. Evelyn would later say that abandonment was the first sound she remembered clearly. But pain didn't break her. It sharpened her. At 11, she began singing in church to help her mother earn extra money. Her voice was soft but powerful. Neighbors started calling her the little radio. Then tragedy struck again. At 15, Evelyn was in a bus accident returning from a school performance. The crash left her with a fractured hip and months of recovery. Doctors warned she might always walk with a limp. During those quiet, painful months, she found something stronger than fear. She found her voice, and this time, she wasn't singing for the neighbors. She was singing to survive. By 18, Evelyn was performing in smoky nightclubs underage. She lied about her age to get on stage. She needed the money. One night in 1947, a music producer named Carl Whitmore heard her sing. He didn't care about her background. He cared about her sound. But he hated her last name. Harper sounds ordinary. He told her, "You're not ordinary." Within a week, Evelyn Harper became Evelyn Hartman. She didn't like it at first, but she kept the name, and soon, the name kept her. Her breakthrough came in 1952 with a song called Midnight Promise. It sold 1 million copies in 8 months. Soldiers overseas requested it on the radio. Housewives played it while cooking dinner. She became the voice of longing. By 1956, she had transitioned into film. Her first movie, Whispers at Dawn, shocked critics. She wasn't just a singer. She could act, and audiences loved her. But success brought something else. Control. Contracts grew tighter. Studios managed her image. Smiles were scheduled. And slowly, the girl who sang in church began disappearing behind the star the world demanded. At just 20 years old, Evelyn believed she had finally found safety in the arms of jazz musician Victor Lane. He was charismatic, magnetic, older. He made her feel protected in a world that constantly demanded something from her. Their romance moved quickly. Late night rehearsals, whispered promises backstage, champagne celebrations after sold-out shows. To the public, they were glamorous, passionate, unstoppable. But behind closed doors, something darker began to grow. Victor's charm slowly turned into control. He began monitoring her phone calls, asking who she spoke to and why. He questioned every male co-star, every director, every fan who lingered too long after a performance. What once sounded like concern started sounding like suspicion. Then came the night that changed everything. After a glittering premiere in New York, a photographer captured Evelyn laughing beside a leading actor. The image ran in a gossip column. The next morning, Victor saw it before she did. When she returned home, he was waiting. His voice was cold, his eyes unreadable. What started as shouting turned violent. He dragged her through the apartment, smashed a mirror against the wall, and shoved her so hard she hit the door frame. The bruises bloomed across her arms and shoulders, carefully hidden under makeup. The next day, when she became pregnant months later, the tension escalated. His jealousy sharpened. His anger became unpredictable. She later told a close friend she sometimes feared she wouldn't survive the marriage. But in the 1950s, Women didn't speak publicly about abuse, especially not stars. In 1954, the divorce was finalized quietly. The papers called it irreconcilable differences. No one knew the truth. But Evelyn carried it with her for years afterward. She refused to sit in the front seat of a car. A silent reminder of nights she couldn't control. Fear had moved in, and it wasn't leaving easily. If Victor had broken her heart, Richard Hale rebuilt her confidence. They met in 1957 at a charity gala. He wasn't an artist. He wasn't emotional or dramatic. He was composed, intelligent, calculating in a way that felt reassuring rather than threatening. Richard understood contracts, investments, tax structures. He told Evelyn something she had never truly heard before: "You focus on being extraordinary. Let me handle the rest." After years of chaos, that promise felt like peace. They married in 1958. And for nearly 2 decades, she believed she had found stability under Richard's management. Her career soared. Film deals multiplied, record sales climbed, endorsements expanded her brand beyond entertainment. By the late 1960s, she was one of the highest paid women in Hollywood, earning salaries few actresses could even imagine. She trusted him with everything. She never checked the books. She never questioned the paperwork he placed in front of her. She signed where he pointed. Then in 1976, Richard died unexpectedly from a heart condition. The grief was real, but what followed was worse. Within weeks, accountants began uncovering inconsistencies, then more, then catastrophic revelations. Her estimated $120 million fortune had vanished. Risky ventures, failing companies, loans taken against her assets without her full understanding, properties leveraged, contracts binding her to projects she never approved, including a long-term television series commitment. She wasn't just financially shaken. She was ruined. At 48 years old, the woman who once dominated Hollywood was forced back to work. Not for passion, not for art, but to survive. The betrayal cut deeper than money. She had given him complete control, complete faith, and in return, she was left rebuilding from ashes. Trust, she realized, can be more dangerous than hatred, because you never see it collapsing until everything is gone. While the world saw glamour, gowns, and flashing cameras, Evelyn was fighting something invisible. Panic. During the filming of Falling Skies in 1962, at the height of her fame, she collapsed backstage just minutes before stepping onto set. Her chest tightened, her hands trembled uncontrollably. She was certain she was dying. "I can't breathe," she whispered to her assistant as crew members rushed around her. An ambulance was called. Doctors ran every test imaginable. Her heart was fine. Her lungs were clear. The diagnosis was simple: anxiety. But in the early 1960s, that word wasn't spoken publicly, not in Hollywood, not by leading ladies. Mental health struggles were seen as weakness, and weakness could end a career. So Evelyn said nothing. Instead, she learned to perform through it. She avoided crowded premieres whenever possible, turned down prestigious award ceremonies, claiming scheduling conflicts. When interviews became overwhelming, she shortened them. When the noise became unbearable, she poured herself a drink. Then another. The pressure to remain America's sweetheart became suffocating. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every appearance required emotional armor. By her early 50s, the panic attacks had become more frequent. She would wake in the middle of the night convinced something terrible was about to happen. Finally, in private and without publicity, she began therapy. No press releases, no announcements, just quiet appointments and difficult conversations. Friends later said therapy saved her life. It helped her understand that the fear she carried wasn't weakness, it was trauma. Layered over years of pressure and betrayal, healing came slowly. And even as she worked to rebuild herself internally, the world never stopped asking her to smile. Evelyn had one child, Caroline Lane, and loving her daughter was the one role she always claimed mattered most. But fame doesn't wait for bedtime stories. As Evelyn toured, filmed, and recorded, Caroline often stayed with relatives or boarding schools. Phone calls replaced dinners, postcards replaced hugs. Evelyn told herself she was building a legacy for her child. But distance doesn't always feel like sacrifice. Sometimes it just feels like absence. As Caroline grew older, their relationship became complicated. There was love, but also resentment. Pride, but also misunderstanding. After Caroline's divorce in the 1990s, tensions deepened. She began asking questions about the family finances, about the foundation, about the estate planning. Conversations turned into arguments. Then came the manager. In 2003, a new business advisor stepped into Evelyn's life. He reorganized staff, tightened security, filtered calls, controlled appointments. Visitors were required to schedule weeks in advance. Caroline later claimed she felt slowly erased. Phone calls were returned less frequently. Meetings were postponed. Invitations became formal rather than familial. The advisor insisted he was protecting Evelyn from stress and outside pressure. That she needed peace, but peace, to Caroline, felt like isolation. Eventually, the visits stopped completely. 12 years passed without mother and daughter seeing each other face to face. Neither spoke publicly. Neither explained. And when Evelyn's obituary appeared online, the silence between them became permanent. In her final decades, Evelyn retreated to her estate in Carmel, California, a sprawling 10-acre property hidden behind iron gates and tall hedges. It became her sanctuary. Or perhaps her shield. She filled the property with rescue dogs, abandoned, injured, forgotten animals. Each one had its own room, its own bed, its own name stitched onto bowls and blankets. Staff members said she remembered every story, every scar. Neighbors rarely saw her leave. She declined Lifetime Achievement Awards, refused invitations to major ceremonies. When journalists requested interviews, the answer was almost always no. She once told a close friend, "Animals don't ask you to pretend." To some, she had become reclusive, a fallen star hiding from the spotlight. To others, she had finally found authenticity, free from studio contracts and public expectations. Inside the estate, life was simple. Paper plates instead of fine china, sweaters instead of gowns, long afternoons walking dogs instead of rehearsing lines. But as the years passed, access grew more restricted, security tightened further, staff turnover increased, decisions flowed through her advisor. When she passed away quietly in 2022, the announcement came through a press statement. There was no hospital vigil, no family photo by her bedside, and questions lingered. Why hadn't her daughter been informed directly? Why had visits been so limited? And in those final years, was Evelyn choosing solitude? Or was solitude being chosen for her? At her memorial service, hundreds gathered. Fans lined the sidewalk holding candles and old vinyl records. Speakers played her most famous ballad, the song that had once made an entire nation fall in love with her voice. Tributes poured in from around the world. Actors, musicians, politicians, all praising her talent, her grace, her influence. Inside the venue, photographs from her career flashed across a screen. Premieres, awards, red carpets, smiling interviews. But standing quietly at the back of the crowd was Caroline. Uninvited. No reserved seat, no family row, just another face in the audience. She watched strangers grieve the woman she once called mom. The applause echoed through the hall, but she remained still. Later, in a brief statement, she said only this: "My mother belonged to the world. I just wish I had belonged to her at the end." Evelyn Hartman left behind platinum records, iconic films, and a foundation that saved thousands of animals. She left behind a legacy that will be studied for generations, but her story carries a quieter truth. Fame protects nothing. Not love. Not trust. Not family. The woman who once filled theaters with sound died behind quiet gates, and in the end, the most painful loss wasn't the vanished fortune. It was time. Time that slipped away while the world was applauding. Time that never came back.